What is it, Precious? What is it?
Hello everyone and welcome to Action RPG. I'm your host Aaron, and for today's video we're headed to the world of Last Epoch. Mike, one of the senior developers at 11th Hour Games, held his normal Friday Q&A live stream on Twitch, which means I get to bring you Dev Chat 97. As always, Mike answered lots of great questions from the community and gave us a little teaser that we will investigate. Let's not waste any time and jump into the first question around PvP.
I know you guys talked before about not having PvP in the game yet, because, well, balance, no, and stuff. But how do you guys feel about low-level PvP, easier to implement and balance? No, okay, so I don't. So maybe we've talked about balancing in general as like a struggle or a hurdle or a challenge with PvP, but that's not the reason it's not in the game right now. Right now, it's just a priority feature and time thing. I think PvP is one of those things that will very likely get added to the game. I will push for it to get added to the game because I love PvP stuff.
Me too.
I think there's lots of room for tons, like for really fun PvP, and especially like non-traditional PvP modes. That's something I'd really like to see still. It's even something that we had as like an optional stretch goal on our Kickstarter to do. I don't think we got to that one, but like I'd love to see some less traditional PvP modes that cause some creative stuff to happen. There was
Tell your story.
I've told the story before, but if it's been a while. One of the earliest multiplayer tests we did was everyone had 1 hit point and everyone had fireball, and there was no teams. It was just anyone can attack anyone. It was a big green square, like the whole thing was just a giant big green square. And it was a really early test. It was just like, get in and try and use an ability, and every ability is just fireball, and everything's a 1-hit kill, and it was a ton of fun. So yeah, I think like GoldenEye mods, like Golden Gun mode, Big Head mode. Like I feel like there's room for some less serious fun PvP modes to slip in alongside some more serious PvP modes. And yeah, balance is definitely an issue, and there might need to be some more creative solutions to balance in PvP, and some of those could be things like even just like banning certain abilities. Like you see this in like TCGs all the time where they ban specific cards and stuff like that. And I feel like it wouldn't be ideal to ban things, but having like PvP adjusted skill trees is a little outside the realm of I think the amount of work we'd want to put into an initial version of that, something like that. But I really can see PvP being something that eventually gets added in. It's one of those just like it's not as high priority as updating the end game, as getting new end game modes in, as making the end game modes that are already in there more fun, as finishing the existing classes that exist, as getting trade into the game. You know, like these things are all just more important. And as a like a high time investment, like a man hours investment to get into the game, it competes with those other features.
I'm gonna stop you right there, Mike. I wanted him to finish his thought. Now, first off, I have wanted PvP inside of Last Epoch for a really long time. We already have planned and scheduled Friday night fights where the community and the different groups can actually have like bracketed style PvP. I don't even care if it's just going hostile outside of town and being able to fight each other. I really hope that this comes to the game in the future. Updates to the UI.
All right, next question. Are there any changes to the UI planned? Oh yeah, of course. For example, I would love to target my minions via unit frames or changes the location of buffs, debuffs to get better overview. Customizing the layout of the UI is not something we're planning on implementing.
I wish they would.
I mean, maybe as a very long-term thing, it's possible, but definitely not by 1.0, and not anytime soon after. There's too much to do in UI realm to make UI customizable. So that we won't be seeing. I can tell you, here's a little teaser. There is some buff element coming that will be displayed differently than other buff elements. Oh.
I feel like I'll just end it every time Mike takes a sip. That counts as a little teaser. Is it a existing buff element or a new one? 1.0?
Will 1.0 have any new features that will shock players that they weren't expecting? I hope so. I think they're like some people won't be shocked, you know, that sort of thing. But I'm sure some people will be.
I want to be shocked. What do we know is missing? 3 masteries, and obviously the passives and skills for those masteries, factions, polish, and some kind of randomization to the monolith. I feel like that is what is currently missing. What would shock me? PvP. No, we know that's not coming. Maybe a new dungeon? That wouldn't shock me either. I don't know if I'm shockable. Dungeon scaling, but in the monolith?
What are your opinions on making the corruption scaling in endgame more tiered, like the dungeons? I think this would make it more easy for players to understand where their characters currently are in terms of power. I think it's I think we've had a few debates on this topic internally over the last year or so. And I think there are positive and negative things to it. I think there's having that a slightly more granular like control over what your corruption is, and that constant like, hey, it's just got a little bit harder, just got a little bit harder, just got a little bit harder, and those like it's getting there, that like that steady progression is really good and healthy. I think it would really help to have more clear breakpoints. And breakpoints might be the wrong term, but more clear like stages and tiers for corruption, and maybe that looks something along the lines of like once your corruption hits 50, something happens. Once your corruption hits 100, something happens. And there are some of those already. They're not very well communicated to the player at the moment. But yeah, it's a tough one. I'm
gonna stop you right there. Monoliths in general could be tier 1. Empowered could be tier 2. Corruption 200 could be tier 3, and corruption 300 could be tier 4. And keep it the exact same, but with each tier you unlock something. And it is kind of like that with blessings and boss drops and things of that nature, but definitely being more visual to the player, I think, would be a plus. Mike's cryptic teaser.
A little teaser. This is a bit of a cryptic teaser this time. It's a bit of a cryptic teaser, and it's actually a little snip of a bigger picture. I know. I'm sure you'll get in some sort of social post down the road, but this was, I got this handed to me for the stream. I was a little teaser to show off, just getting some experience behind that right now.
A little snip of a bigger picture that we are going to get a social post for down the road. Sounds like it's pretty important. Now, lucky for me, since I watch every single stream, this is DevChat 97, I've got the receipts for this one. Enjoy. Pause. Okay, I want to be clear. This is just my opinion, nothing official. So technically, I can't tell you what this is. But since this is DevChat 92, and I have watched every stream Mike has ever done and covered it, I can use what I know from previous streams and process of elimination to take a educated guess at this one. Now, as you can see here, there is a character model, and it shows you the size of the fire drakes, which is what this is, okay? And I can pull up a recently released picture. You ready for this? What does this look like? This is the Falconeer's Falcon. And as you can see on screen, you've got the rogue with the falcon. Now I'm going to take this off and you will see the acolyte with the fire drakes, her fire drake. Now, what does that mean? I am going to take an educated guess and say that this is a minion for the warlock. Okay. It's not going to be for Lich. I doubt it. And I doubt they're going to add an additional fire minion to Necromancer. I'm going to guess this is a fire minion bat or dragon, whatever the heck it is, for your warlock. Let's continue with the little Masteries teaser.
Is there anything you can tease for upcoming Mastery? Not really. One of them has a special UI element that goes with them. Ooh.
One of them has a special UI element that goes with it. You already know which one it is. Falconeer. All right, everyone. Unfortunately, we've come to the final rant from Mike for DevChat97. Mike, as always, thank you for continuing these Friday live streams. The community truly appreciates it. And I could tell you with complete confidence, we are stoked for 1.0 later this year. Now, before I let Mike take out this video, 2 asks at the end. Ask number 1, I'm hoping today is the day I have earned your subscription. Hoping today is the day you make the decision to push that little red button. I would really appreciate it, but of course, only if you think I deserve it. If I haven't earned it yet, I'm going to work harder for you. Ask number 2, check out my Patreon. Thank you to the first 88 members that have signed up. Become an instant ARPG VIP and get Patreon exclusive content at the first link in the description. I get asked all the time, what is the best way to support? And if you ever want to take it one step further, Patreon truly is the best way. And you get all the added benefits of Patreon, which is, there is a lot of them. So that's all I've got. Mike wants to talk tips and tricks. You will see. Enjoy.
So let's just call it tips for making suggestions for the game in general, really. But I'm going to focus on the uniques part of it because it's a really easy way to give good examples, I guess. So if you want to suggest stuff for the game, quite often it's, especially if it's going to be for a specific unique or item or skill or something like that, it's really important to get to the core of the issue. To be able to like look at an item. That's probably a bad example. Yeah, I guess here's a good example, actually. A perfect example. So the really interesting thing about this item is the elemental damage leeches health. The fact that it's on the base leather gloves, the fact that it has increased leech rate, the fact that it has like just LE-res on it. Those things are important and something that does get careful thought and attention put into it. But the elevator pitch for these gloves would be, hey, I think that having a tool in your glove slot for elemental based characters leeching health that can hit things that don't normally leech, like for example dots, and having that health leech in the glove slot for elemental dots for like ignite builds and like picking out specific builds that works well with things like that is really good. And focusing on that like core, thematically appropriate and interesting mechanic rather than here's like the entire stats for the item. If I was pitching this item, if I was like if I wasn't working on the game and I was pitching this item to me, I would really focus on the specific the niche that it's trying to fill, the role that it's trying to play, and a suggestion on how to get there. And it's fitting those details in that's really important. Fitting those details in, like why this is a feature that's needed, why this is a mechanic that's important, why this is something that would be interesting, fun, something like what does this enable, what does this what hole in the build crafting for elemental characters does this fill? you know, it's that stuff that's really important. And as soon as you start adding in, like, okay, well, this item's gonna have this node, and then this item's also gonna have elemental resistance. Okay, so now you have to say, like, okay, why does it have elemental resistance? If I'm evaluating the suggestion, even if I'm just looking at just the item, and someone says to me, hey, I want an item that has these 4 stats on it, I'm gonna say, okay, like, I need to figure out first which of these stats is most important. Like, if I was gonna make changes to this, like, what would be the, like, what's the pivot point on the item? So in this item, the elemental damage leeches health. That's the pivot point. So it means you can take that item and say, like, we'll keep that stat, and we're gonna make it belt now. And it's an extremely similar item. It'll still fill a very similar niche. It's competing with different stuff. Like, this is all like fine-tuned balance stuff that's really important. And while the item's going through those when it's out of ideation and it's more into that, like, the tuning and the balancing and how it's going to fit into the game world, that's the sort of stuff that's really important to figure out then. But getting it into, hey, we're going to make an item that has elemental damage leeches health, that's the important step, and that's the interesting step, and that's the part that the suggestion should be focusing on. And I think that you can kind of expand that to most other things too. So like, let's say you are trying to make a new endgame system, and you're trying to say, like, you're trying to find a new style of activity to engage in. And maybe this is let's pretend the arena doesn't exist. Okay, I want to have a game mode that's kind of it's a little less involved moment-to-moment decision making as far as like strategy planning, and it's more involved in I've set my class my build up beforehand, and I'm going to see how far I can push it in this endless gauntlet of foes to face, right? You're fulfilling this niche in that you're not making these strategic planning points as frequently with the monolith you're picking echoes, with the dungeons you're picking mods on each floor, things like that. It's this push, it's this long term, it's more of a grind as far as like endurance, like player endurance, that sort of stuff. Like, it's more about planning that initial character and seeing how far that can go, how far that can push. But in that pitch, if you start trying to get into the real details of that arena, where you're like, okay, so enemies, it needs to be an arena, and enemies need to spawn around you in, like, mostly a circular arena, and maybe that's not the important part. Maybe it's a really long hallway, and maybe something is constantly chasing you. Maybe there's, like, a boulder rolling down this hallway that's coming after you, like Indiana Jones style, and you have to, like, kill things and keep moving. And, like, that's a very similar thing. It's a pretty big twist. That's a pretty big difference that happens there, and that's a different system, but it still fits that same core feeling and niche that like the current arena that we have sits in. And focusing on and trying to pitch those extra details in there, I guess, leaves room for, like, picking apart the idea a little bit, and sometimes being a little bit more vague and stepping back a little bit and trying to capture the essence of what you're trying to accomplish with the idea can be more effective, and can also leave room for more collaboration as well. So say instead of pitching this rolling boulder behind the character, you just pitch the overarching idea of what the system would be generally. Then other people can add in some extra things they might have to personalize that idea to themselves as well, and then you get a champion that's pushing the idea with you, instead of someone that's fighting you on some detail that's not what you're trying to get in. Because maybe the boulder is not an important part of this, but it's just an example that you picked up, and it's just a way to, like, enhance the idea, and maybe it's a great part of it, and maybe that is what ends up happening in the end. But that initial suggestion, having it, doesn't really help the suggestion that much, I don't think.